Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
I've recently seen on LinkedIn, there's a guy doing this series on, he retired early in his 40s. And the thing that really struck me, and he's sort of doing an analysis on what it's like to suddenly find complete freedom in your life. But the thing that really struck me is he said, you think when you have no actual problems, when you have this free life, that you have nothing that you have to worry about, that you are going to be so much happier. And he said what actually happens is your threshold for problems drops. And so you find the smallest things more and more difficult. And that kind of sparked our thinking on today's episode, which is that the struggle is real, the duality of needing to have good times and bad times to lead a fulfilled life.
Yeah, struggle is real but good.
But good.
Unfortunately, we've all been through a pretty tough 2024, as evidenced by a recent Power Suit exercise where we asked our members to use 3 words to describe the year we've just been through.
We got a lot of people answering.
And not only that, it was so obvious that there was a real duality in some of the responses. So I just want to read a couple of them. There were things like, while you're listening, think about what your 3 words are. And yes, I'll link to the exercise so you can reflect, because the power of reflection, we've done a couple pod eps on this now. And so please feel free to take a look at that. Some power suiters reported unmotivated, directionless, lonely, but also included words like fulfillment, growth, learning. Another example, difficult, tiring, hopeful were used, affirming, growth, joy. Incredible words.
You've pointed out this particular response where it was like sad, rising above, and proud.
Talk about this whole journey of the struggle, but then, wow.
That you can feel really good about it. Well, yesterday, for example, we, alongside Kristen's husband, my girlfriend, and a flock of others, went down to try a new fishing situation at the beach. Lowlights, highlights. We really struggled with that torpedo. Kristen at one point mentioned it's the world's first dangerous torpedo, which we had to clarify. But then what did you do? You were our lifeguard to capture the torpedo. What happened? That took us from a high to a low.
It came right at me.
And then?
And then we didn't catch any fish. What happened?
Then you found out you'd gone swimming with your phone.
I'd gone surfing with my phone. Yeah, so the struggle was we had a duality of success and struggle yesterday, except for we didn't catch any fish. So probably on balance, it was slightly more struggle, but success was
We did go to the fish and chip shop to get fish afterwards, so there was fish.
We paid someone else to get the fish. But there's this real struggle growth paradox. When we encounter challenges, that is when real growth happens, because incredible things are happening in our brain. We're creating new neural pathways when we're going through the struggle. And it's like upgrading our mental operating system. And we know that there's all these studies that show that when we work through these challenges, we have improved problem-solving abilities and greater emotional intelligence.
And it totally makes sense, even on a micro level. Like, I think putting that torpedo together yesterday, doing any DIY project, IKEA furniture construction, that sense of accomplishment you get after the low of the challenge of actually doing it is so much higher. And that is why there is that you need both to feel really happy in life.
And if anyone's wondering what the torpedo is, it's a Kontiki. It's a Kontiki, and it's this thing that looks like a torpedo, a submarine.
It's a little submarine that could.
It's so cute. It goes out into the ocean and then drops hooks, and you're meant to catch fish. And so, stay tuned.
Did it wrong.
Stay tuned for that.
Mike's bait did not work.
Stay tuned for that. But stress is actually great. And I was reflecting on times I've been stressed in my life, but when properly processed, so let's just call it healthy stress. We're not talking massively traumatic events, but let's talk healthy stress leads to 5 areas of growth. Number 1, greater appreciation for life. So true. Number 2, more intimate relationships. We can actually bond through stress and come out when we come out on the other end. Number 3, recognition of new possibilities. So we feel more optimistic about what lays ahead. Number 4, enhanced personal strength. So again, this ability to back ourselves and get through it and grit. And finally, actually interestingly, is spiritual development. So we get a sense.
You have to look to a higher power.
Is it a sense of like the greater universe, and
you start to hold up faith.
We shouldn't be avoiding stress, but we do have to welcome normal everyday challenges, barriers, stress, and go through, crap, because we have to appreciate it as a catalyst for growth.
Well, and this is, I think, the English language as a whole, and I love seeing different words for different things in different languages, but stress we use as such an umbrella term, and I love that you've broken it down into everyday challenges, or like sometimes it's that roller coaster of trying something new and failing a few times, and that stress is quite different from the stress you feel if you're in a really toxic work environment or you feel completely powerless. So I think sometimes the words we use to say all manner of things. And what we're trying to talk about today is those challenges that are so required to lead to this, really. Like some of those words of, difficult. Like difficult is not necessarily a bad thing. Whereas I think when we label everything just with stress, you assume difficult means it's a very negative thing. Whereas growth and learning and that stuff is stressful sometimes, but it's good stress.
Yeah.
It's the stress we actually want more of.
Yeah. I was thinking of this AQ, because there's EQ. It started with IQ, which was like smart people.
None of us hit that mark, so we changed it.
And then Nat and I are like, but we've got EQ, emotional quotient, and this is just all about being relatable.
We might have IQ too. I've never tested mine. We might have it.
We probably have some IQ. We probably rate, I don't know, above average on IQ. Come on, I'm going to state that. But I would say...
I reckon we're top. No one can prove otherwise.
Okay. Well, a test can. And then EQ, I would say our EQs are very high. But what I would say are equally very high, oh my gosh, we're amazing, is adaptability quotient. And an adaptability quotient is kind of a newer one of the Qs. And it is our capacity to adjust to new circumstances, overcome challenges, and embrace change. And I think change, super important when we think about adapting. It is to an ever-changing world, workplace, life, and our ability to adapt and embrace change is so much more important, in my opinion, nowadays than IQ. So stuff you, IQ.
I also think, going back to our little submarine that could, when I watched that yesterday, because I took a bunch of photos and they're adorable, because it was like, 10 of us standing around looking at this yellow thing on the ground. Then there were like 2 guys with instructions, like laughing at the instructions. And then we're all down at the beach sending this thing out together. And I think it showcases that thing of a shared teamwork challenge.
Yeah.
And this is a little silly one, but it was, we had to work together to play our parts, to hold things down, to try something new, and we were all unified in our pride when the thing came back. And you just think those things are such great examples of why those challenges are, because it wasn't easy. Like, I think there were multiple times we were like, this is too hard, we don't think this is going to work.
Do you know what's interesting? You said teamwork. How do you boost your AQ? The obvious stuff came out, embracing learning opportunities and a lot of stuff we chat about at PowerSuit. But do you know one of the top things you could do, which I was like, ooh, that's confronting? Taking accountability is the biggest thing to boost your AQ. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Now think of this scenario. Something changes at work, which it always does. It could be restructures. It could be a new project. It could be a new direction that the company has taken. It could be that you're moving from fixed desks to hot desks. Like, think of any change that happens in a workplace, right?
Yeah.
Now think about when they say accountability. I looked into that word as part of AQ, and it's actually embracing the change. So instead of resisting it, it's embracing it.
Which actually totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like I think this is such a great example of the PowerSuit philosophy. And I noticed that this is one of the traits that unifies our members, is this idea of self-leadership. And I can't control everything, but what can I control? And often it is my reaction to things or how I use my behavior to influence. And this is a great example of, and you see it play out in work all the time. There's a new announcement, and let's say the return to office movement. It's not something that I want to do. If I'm in that situation and I am working for an organization who chooses to do that, I've got a couple of choices. I can get out, I can go get another job, or I can get on board. Yeah. And those are kind of the 2 options, but we sometimes passively resist. And that is that lack of accountability. We are going along with it, but resenting it. And that is what makes us quite unhappy, because we are not actively taking control and being accountable.
Well, it stunts our growth. And we talk about when you work through stress is when the greatest growth happens and those 5 areas develop, which we talked about. And if you're resisting the change, we're unable to process that stress and actually move through it to bigger and better things. So I think that's sort the duality. That is actually the duality where we're connecting the yuck stuff. Like, change is hard. And humans, we get comfortable, right? And we resist change because it's that, what is it, flight, fight, or freeze. And that is a biological reaction. I think it's just 3, isn't it?
I don't know.
Anyway, we resist change because, we want to be comfortable. But the AQ and the ability to take accountability and welcome it no matter how hard it is, but also to be open to the opportunities on other sides leads us to the duality of like going from yuck to like yay.
Yeah. Well, and I did think like what I said at the start about this guy who retired early, he gave the example of often when you see sort of older retired people and they have one job they need to do that day. And he talked about going to the post office and the immense level of stress this person faced to get to the post office that night. It wasn't urgent. They could have gone the next day. But the way our brains are wired is that we will never hit utopia where we don't have challenges. So you, depending on where you sit in life and the challenges you put in front of you, you will have a higher threshold and a lower threshold or a lower threshold. And one of the greatest things about professional development and career development is if you push yourself to have some bigger challenges, firstly, those smaller challenges won't matter anymore. You don't think about them. You don't care. Your brain is not attuned to them because it's focused on bigger things. And secondly, you will achieve a lot more because you will start to go, like I think even us in the last year starting this business, when you think about that versus probably a couple of years before where we were a team of 65, there were different challenges. But I think this year has been like, oh, that's right. We have now rebuilt that muscle of those early stage, chaotic, 2-person, not enough time, not enough money, not enough anything, challenges and hugely comfortable managing them and now get a lot of joy out of them. Whereas I think earlier in the year, we found it a lot harder and a lot more confronting when we were faced with yet another limit.
Well, it's genuinely, like for lack of a better term, a muscle to be flexed.
It is.
The easier it becomes. And so I was thinking of my 3 words, and there's real duality to them as well. And they're shared with a lot of power suitors, is that I think off the top of my head would be difficult, tiring. I really felt tired this year, a lot of health stuff, but difficult, tiring, but then proud and actually proud comes up quite a bit. The fact that we got through this, so many people have been through so much this year, that word popped up quite a bit. Come on, 2025.
My first word would probably be firsts, because I feel like it was a year of so many firsts. Yep. Everything felt like a start. So maybe it's start as well. Second one for me was relationships. This is a year I felt surrounded by incredible people and really understood the value of finding community and multiple communities and using those relationships. And then our relationship, how we have to work together, this insanely crazy environment. And then being with Kyla for 3 years and her moving in, like relationships.
Love it.
And then I think my final word for this year, so I'm probably like overly optimistic, but is like hopeful or excited, because I feel like this whole year has been, or maybe potential. Everything is new. So it's like a really positive year. But that's not to say throughout the year there weren't a lot of really hard things, but they all ended up good, I think.
Well, we're going to use the potential to take us into 2025, which is great. And I don't want to be as tired in 2025 as I
didn't have those health issues. That was hard.
Yeah, and I've got vitamin B complex just sitting behind me here. So I'm giving that a go and upping my protein. So all sorts of stuff I'm giving a go. But yeah, that if I can dump that one, I'm okay with difficult and some of the other stuff I think for 2025. But bring it on,
I was going to say, when you talk about your things behind you, I'm like, if anyone is confused at all about how committed we are to Powersuit, we're currently on holiday. We're at the beach. We're playing with submarines, and we have locked ourselves in a pod at Kristen's house talking to y'all because we love them.
We do. To end, we actually have some really quick tips to help us work through the stress. I'm going to start with number 1, which is practice both and practice. Always remember, when you're saying something quite difficult, add an "and." I'm feeling overwhelmed, and this is teaching me to set better boundaries. I'm not sure about my next career move, and it's allowing me to explore new opportunities. The idea that you have to have both sides of the coin when you're sharing a statement, challenge yourself to that.
I love it, because I feel like that's what we're having to do with learning how to do sales, to go, I'm really terrified of this thing, and it's a massive untapped opportunity for us.
Love it.
I've been trying to mentor that.
You've done it.
I love that. We also do that. We've been doing that at the dinner table. Shocking for a group of friends of mine to have little customs together, but the Pete's and Pick.
Oh, I love that.
But we actually just changed it our unofficial official advisor is staying with me at the moment, and she just said, let's just do peaks. Let's just cut the pits this time. And so we're going around talking about these beautiful moments throughout the day. So I love it. And then, of course, because I'm me, I'm like, oh, I've got a new one. This one I actually saw on Instagram in the last couple of days, and I loved it. So it's somewhat relevant, maybe not perfectly, but they said, what is your goal? Think ahead to the goal you're working towards. And it could be like a 5-year plan. It could be something you really want to achieve. It could be like buying a house or a career move or whatever. And then they said, think specifically about the feelings you are aiming for. Like, is it contentment, happiness, achievement, pride? What are the things you think you're going to feel when you hit that goal? And then the third step is to go, how often do you feel those feelings now? And by doing that, you start to identify in your day-to-day life those things that you're trying to work towards, you actually already have a lot of.
I love that.
And then it does the rewiring thing as well. It's like the yellow car thing. Your brain starts to notice those feelings and strive for those feelings. Yeah, I really like it.
That is when women lose a sense of purpose and meaning in their jobs. We were chatting with someone who we've asked to do a mini masterclass for PowerSuit next year, and she talks to a lot of lawyers. She was a lawyer, and now she's a brain scientist, but but what she found was that
she has a high IQ
and EQ probably, but she chats with lawyers who lose their sense of purpose partway through their law careers, and these women who are going, why the heck am I doing this? And she says because they enter with the goal of, I'm exaggerating here, saving humanity. They're like, I want to do good in the world. And all of a sudden they find themselves in the trenches where they can't get this person out of jail. This is an example. Mm-hmm. And she was like, oh, because you're focused on that one ultimate goal of saving that person, getting them off the hook, showing them that they're, everyone, that they're free and innocent, yet they're here stuck in jail going through the struggle. And she's like, you need to identify every day your steps towards like why you got into this. Mm-hmm. So for example, every phone call you have with that person lifts their spirits and gets them through. And they wouldn't have that if you weren't doing this career. So I love that you're like, it's not the ultimate reason why you got into the career, but it's the day-to-day small steps that are actually getting you to the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and the why behind that goal, because like I've always been very like, once I buy a house, I'll be happy. Once I hit this career step, I'll be happy. And I love that it goes, what do you actually want to feel? Because otherwise you'll get there and you won't feel it anyway. But you also have missed all the times you felt it along the way.
Yes,
and I thought that was really cool. Okay, you've got a last one?
Yeah, I've got a last one, and this is the reset ritual. And we talked a lot about this when we did our reflection podcast episode. And this was because we're like, you don't just have to do it at the end of every year, which is what we find ourselves doing. And so you can actually create a reset hour. So don't wait for a new year or a new month. And it's a 3-step process. Number 1 is create the hour in your calendar block. And so we're normalizing that resetting anytime we want. Is totally allowable and okay. Number 2, energy audit. We've talked about this before. In your reset hour, what are the things that are draining you and what are the things that are charging you? You can do this anytime. In fact, it doesn't even have to be an hour. It can be 10 minutes. Reflect on your energy audit, number 2. And number 3, make one small change. What's the thing? Probably focus on the stuff draining you. And what are the things that you're going to remove, delegate, just stop worrying about so that you can focus more on the stuff that energizes you.
Or double down on the stuff that energizes you. I love that. And I think, again, like we have spoken about it, that the reflection exercise we did was 10 minutes. We deliberately said 2 minutes per question, 5 questions. Those things, very easy to do every week or month. Go to the link if you haven't already. I was really surprised, firstly, by how many PowerSuiters did it through, we had an anonymous form. It's no longer anonymous because everyone wanted their emails sent to them. So now we've added an email, so it just goes straight to you. But then secondly, how many people posted on LinkedIn, or it sparked in email chains or chat groups, people going, oh, these questions, even picking up 2 of the questions and doing it as a group. And that just struck me as year of relationships. But if you have a peer group, if you have people you want to talk more about your careers with, if you're going through challenges and like you want to really embrace this duality, start a WhatsApp group with a couple of close people and do this little exercise every week or every day, or do the peak or whatever it is. And I have just found it incredibly valuable. So, it is a nice way to draw success out of challenges.
Well, and the whole point was we were like, why are we always looking forward? Like we're always looking forward, myself included. And what if we were just to take small moments of time and look back first? And we just made it super
It really
simple.
does make the path forward clearer because I think had we not done that exercise, and even talking about this, you just leap to the next thing without knowing actually if that's the right next thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've got our next
Yeah.
challenge hopefully in a couple of hours where we will hit the golf course. And some of us have got air once, maybe twice, but that's it. So we're going to go through that new roller coaster and come out and reflect on what we've learned.
The
and how
struggle,
we're better.
will be real on the golf course, but no doubt we'll have a great time as well. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in during these holiday periods. Hope you're having a wonderful time, and we will catch you on the other side.
Catch you in next year.
Yeah, catch you next year.
Bye.
Bye.